y'all. These folks be hating life. Like I said, this is not my first rodeo. But that company that, I could have filed the lawsuit, and I did not. I chose not to. I actually had, in my youth, worked and worked as in retail. And like I tell you now, from the company that I just, they had terminated me falsely. I've always had ethics and a standard about me. And so I worked for a company that was in retail. And I and another person, a supervisor of mine, had come into work. And we were the only two working, I was working customer service. We were the only two working customer service, and we get the drawer, the money, and I think it was like $3,500 per drawer. And it should have been like four customer service reps and the supervisor. Now, the supervisor and I were the only ones, but she was like, well, I'm going to get the money for the other drawers, and just in case someone, one of the workers comes in, the other customer service workers come in. And I was like, oh, okay. And so, let me think, because it's been a minute, y'all, because I had to take them to task. No, she said she only got her drawer, and I was new there. I hadn't got my because you're responsible for each drawer, right? So it was like $3,500, and she got her drawer, and she told me to work on her drawer, and I was reluctant to work on the the cash register. I was reluctant to work on the cash register because it's her money and she's responsible for her money. I don't want to work on the drawer because if anything comes up short, I don't want her talking about, well, Nicole worked on the drawer, blah, blah, blah. No, I didn't want any of that. So she was like, no, go ahead. And she's a supervisor. I'm new there. And, but I've always looked out for me, okay? I've always looked out for me because I know I've heard horror stories how people do others. And so we worked that day. It was just her and I. And I felt sorry for her because she's the only supervisor. So she's ripping and running. So I'm working her drawer. And so at the end of the night, you're supposed to count your money to make sure your drawer adds up to the tally for the day. And that's right, she did get all the other money, but they never, because you had to rip open. I don't know how anybody else's drawer or how their company worked, but this was on a military base. So when you got the money for the drawers, you had to rip open it comes in a sealed, like a sealed pouch, a plastic pouch. So once you rip it open, there's no saying that you didn't open it up or whatever. And then you count it right then and there, and then you count it again at the end of the day. So she had got the $3,500 from each, for the people who were supposed to come into work. They never showed up. But she just put it into the cash register, and then I worked her drawer, which I didn't want to do. And so it's the end of the night. She's burnt out. I'm tired. she gets the other money because you have to take it back to the bank. And but she didn't have to count that money because that money was never, the bag was never opened, the seal was never broke. So she gets that money and she says, okay, I'm so tired, Nicole, just put all the money in the from today and just put it in the bag and seal it and let's go. And I know protocol. I am a stickler for a protocol, standard of operation procedures. And I was like, hold up. I know you're my supervisor, but that is not how this is supposed to go. I'm supposed to count this money. And since I've been working your drawer, I need for you to, I'm going to count it, and I need for you to come over here and count this money as well. And so she was like, no, I'm your supervisor, and I told you to just bag the money and let's go. And I always keep something. Attention, I'm going to keep a recording device on me. Now, a little something, especially working with, because in the fields that I've worked in, it's responsibility, okay? And you ain't about to pin nothing on a system, okay? So, and that's sad to have to be like that, always on guard, always on edge, because this is the world we live in. And so we got into a argument because I'm like, I'm not just gonna bag up this money and put it in the drawer. And you know, she was like, if I tell you to bag up this money and put it in the drawer, that's what you need to do. I said, I will not. So I hit record. I said, I'm gonna count this money, and and that's what I'm gonna do. So I start counting the money. I start counting the money so we can go home. I've been working her drawer, but she will come on in every now and again because we're customer service. So you have to tag and bag and put stuff, back away so that the stalkers can put it back in on the floor. And so we rotating. That's even worse because you don't know who's slipping money. And this is before, now they got cameras over registers and all of this. Is before all that, okay? I mean, we had cameras, but it wasn't as high tech as it is now. Shoot, and self checkout in Walmart now, honey, they got the camera on you, okay? So, I was like, no, so mind you, I got record on, and see, the job I had, I was union. I've always been a union person, GS, something like along those lines. So my jobs ain't been just, and I ain't saying that to be funny or anything like that, but that's why I always had record, because I ain't playing no games with nobody. So I was part of the union, and so I recorded it, and so I'm trying to count the money, and she was like, no, I'm ready to go, just move, and she just takes the money and and the way she was acting was making me think that she had took some of that money, took some money and was gonna try to pin it on me. You know how you tired in the night, you go home and you done follow, hey, melanated, you done follow orders from your superior just blindly, and so what you say? I just tapped that button. Yeah, I saw the heart go up. Thank you for tapping. Melanated. So I did not, I stopped counting the money, and she said, I'm your and she was a young girl too. I was young too, but she was much younger than me. And she was like, I'm your supervisor, and I gave you an order. And I don't know why she said that, but when she said that, it reminded me of, I don't know, Vietnam. My uncle was in Vietnam, so I heard horror stories and things of that nature. But I had heard a story. I don't know if it came from my uncle or I watched a Vietnam movie where there was like young soldiers in Vietnam, and then their sergeant told them it was like a 12-year-old girl, and the sergeant raped the little girl, and then he ordered the privates to rape the little girl, and the privates did it. But when they got back to, after war and stuff, they don't understand about the Geneva Convention, all that. They got brought up for war crimes, and when they were on trial, they were asking the privates, well, why did you rape the little girl? You knew she was 12. You knew you were at war. She was a Vietnamese a civilian, blah, 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 blah. And the privates were like, because our sergeant gave us a directed order. And so the prosecutors or whoever was like, okay, he gave you a directed order, so you followed that order. And they were like, yeah, thinking that they were going to get off because they followed a directed order by their sergeant, although it was breaking, because there's rules to war. And even though they were breaking these rules, they didn't know. Just like they say in America, just because you don't know all the rules of the road don't mean you're not going to get a traffic ticket, because you don't know that the red light means stop, you know. And so that, I don't know why that stuck in my mind, that just because somebody is over you and has more authority over you does not mean that you take an order to commit a crime because you have an authority over you. There's an authority over them, and let them deal with it afterwards. You don't follow just blatant, blindly, and commit a crime. So, long story short, that stuck in my head. And so when she told me, I'm giving you an order, I'm ordering you to put that money in the bag and take it and zip, seal it up and take it to the bank. And I said, I said, I will not. And I walked smooth up out. I walked smooth up out of there. I said, I'm out. Okay. And she was like, get back here, get back. I said, I will not. I'm out. And so I went home. And by working, like if you work for GS, NAF, or are you part of a union, it's not like civilians. It's not like you just quit and nobody calls and says anything to you. Or so I get a phone call talking about, it was a person from the union, because she had to make a report because I left and she was lying. And I have a thing about, I'm not, I can't, first of all, I can't be racist, but I treat everybody fairly. I really do. Because I've been in supervisor's position. So it doesn't matter if you're black, white, or whatever. If you come in and do the job, we good. So her being a white woman over me and just blatantly lied, just was lying out of her teeth, talking about how horrible I did and yada yada yada. So they pulled the cameras, and so like the next day, I got a call from the union rep, okay, one of the representatives over the union. And she called and she asked me to come to her store because she wanted me to get my point. And when she called me, I said, ma'am, I left. So I'm sure I'm fired. I'm not coming back. And she said, no, she said, I'm your union rep. Come to the store. Come back to the store and talk to me. And so, but I never told my union rep I had the recording, and I never told her, my supervisor. So I go to the meeting with the union rep, and she was like, well, she wasn't supposed to do that, but she said you were doing all this. And even though you're part of a union, even though you think you have legit people, like you think HR is working for you, but really HR is working for the company. They're just there to take up office space. Straight up. I listened to the union rep and I said, okay, no, none of that other stuff happened, ma'am. And she was like, well, the money in the bag and take it to, I was like, yeah. And she said that you were working her register, all this setup that I felt that it was going to be a setup. I was like, yes, I did work the register, but she didn't want to count the money. After I counted the money, she just wanted me to put it in the bag and seal it and take it to the bank. And so, the union rep, and by me being young, I thought maybe she thought she was running the okey doke over me, trying to play these word games and all this. And I was like, um, we'll come back. She was telling me, we'll go back. She's going to write this up. It's just going to be a write up and blah, blah. A write up? Who's she writing up? Who's she writing up about some money that she didn't want to? Who is she counseling? Writing up who? Not me. Not for something. I'm on the up and up. No, ma'am. No, sir. I quit. I quit. And so they were like, well, you don't have to quit. She's just going to write it up. But no, 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 no. I quit. And I quit. And I went and I filed unemployment. Now, in the state of Texas, because this is where it happened at, it's a right to fire state. So the state can, not the state, but the employers can fire at will. It's like an at-will state. And if you quit, you can't get unemployment. However, you always should know all of the regulations when you are employed. I quit and I went down to the employment office. Back in the day, we called it unemployment office. And I talked to them and they say, yes, you can file a claim of unemployment. And even if you quit, but however, if you file a claim of unemployment and you quit the job, just like what I was getting ready to do with this lawsuit, you will have to give the reason why you quit. And it has to go in the guidelines of the state regulations to why you quit. And if they fall in those guidelines, you then will receive unemployment. I said, okay. So I filed unemployment after I quit. And then there was a trial set up with my employer, unemployment, and myself. This trial was over the phone because we didn't have all the fancy Zoom and all that yet. This was like in the 90s, okay? And so my trial was over the phone, but before my trial, they send you all the paperwork so that you can submit your defense on why you quit, and the circumstances had to meet certain qualifications. I sent not only my written statement, but what else do you guys think I sent in? Anybody? Are you paying attention? The copy of the recording of that day's events. The unemployment office, just like a lawyer, well, in discovery, if you went through a full trial, they can ask what you have, and you would give that over in discovery. But however, for unemployment, discovery wasn't part of that process. That process is, what is the employer going to say, and what do you have to say? And what evidence they have, and what evidence do you have? And we are on the phone, and so the unemployment representative questions me. The unemployment representative questions my former employer, and then my former employer is just a lion out their mouth, just spewing out nothing but lies. I said nothing. I sat quiet. Then the unemployment representative said, now, are you sure that these are the statements that you want to stick to, basically? And they just, yes, and she played that recording. They retracted everything, and I won my unemployment, and I quit the job. So there are state qualifications to being fired, whether you're in a right to fire state. This means that your employer has the right to just fire you without saying anything. But that is not just, a lot of people are afraid of right to fire states, but that's not just the end all be all. You can't just fire somebody and just think that, oh, okay, I'm good as an employer, because that's what happened to me with iHeartMedia. They terminated me on lies and false pretenses. And I took they behind straight to the unemployment company. Not company, what do they call them? Workforce. And I stated my claim, and they had to prove theirs, and they lost. And that is how you can't, you hear about people talking about, oh, I'm going to file a lawsuit against my employer. It doesn't just work like that either. You have to go through the EEOC in order to file a lawsuit. And the EEOC then has to do an investigation with your company. Then they have to send you a right to sue letter. You can't just go, don't get caught up in social media where you hear people always hollering about suit, unless it's a civil suit regarding person to person. But employee to employer, you have to go through a process. Okay, so for me to be even on the cusp of finalizing that lawsuit, they had already been proven at a particular levels as guilty. Do you understand? I would not have gotten any monies if they weren't. My thing is, like I was saying on the last live stream, that $350, that's relative. That's picking up the phone and just saying, can I get this? That's all that would have took. I just, to drag it on, probably weighed more on me also as part of it, because I knew I had already won. And I wasn't in it for the money. Although I had attorneys said, oh, I have witnesses that, oh, she's about to be banking. Oh, she's about to be rolling in the money. Oh, and then I probably have people talking behind my back saying she's so stupid. She should have just went and filed that lawsuit, borrowed that money, because that money she borrowed would have been a drop in the bucket. 350 compared to $500,000 or $1 million, that would have been a drop in the bucket. Or however more. I'm saying $500,000, million from what people have told me, attorneys. It could probably even been more from all of the evidence that I had. And it's so funny how, when Cassie came out, they're like, why she come out now? It's because of statutes of limitations. So trying to fight one corner and lose your statute of limitation and going around another corner, that's what happened with Cassie. That's why she fought through employment as an employee. That was how her lawsuit went through. So for me, and thank you, Kaboosh. Let me say this. I did put up that GoFundMe, but I didn't push it. I just put it up there, and I deleted it, but he found a way to still send money to support me in this lawsuit. But I told him, he could have gotten that money back, because I simply could have called a relative to fund the lawsuit for me to just file it. But he was gracious enough to told me to keep it. And thank you. So yes, I could have pushed it, but the weight that was lifted off, not only that company, I knew the evil that I didn't recognize when I first started. And still, let me tell you this. It's not, because it's a major company. It's iHeartMedia. It's a major company. It's not the whole of the company. It's like they are Apple, and they had just a rotten piece that was down at the bottom of the apple, that the top of the apple didn't know that they had, and they probably have several rotten pieces in that company. I'm not sure, but I'm just giving you a for instance. Not the whole company, but where I found myself, that branch of the company was rotten to the core. That little round rot piece on that apple had rot all the way to the core, and it's just waiting to spread. If that company, if iHeart doesn't get a hold of that company, I'm sure in the metropolitan areas they don't have as much discrimination, racial discrimination, and just some of the diabolical things that they were doing, because there's 30 radio stations that my company president operated, and that's 30. So imagine globally, they got hundreds of, not even thousands of radio stations, right? I sold for 8 of those radio stations. So it's not the whole of the company, it's the branch that needed to be looked at. And especially for any person of color coming back through that branch. So I was standing on justice. That's what was pushing me, but it was a weight lifted from me. But before I left, before I was, even though I knew what I was going through, I knew that branch was just, I still help people, okay? And I'm sure that some people locally knew what I went through in that company, but that stopped them from wanting my help and my assistance to tap in, to get some kind of connection, because they didn't have to stay local. You understand? And that is what I understood. That's what I knew. That what I was going through, I could only imagine the people who came before me and the people who came before them, before that door was even open to people of color. And if I was going through what I experienced in 2015, 2016, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, in the 20th century, if I was going through that type of racism, discrimination, criminal activity, I could only imagine the people who opened the door and made it possible for me. But got stomped on, and their voices truly not heard. So while I was there, I did my damnedest to allow anyone the opportunity to come up there and let their voice be heard, spread awareness of their events. I know that, and the people in this community know that. So when I say that for me not going forward, it was a weight. It was a weight lifted. And I can sit here with, I don't care how many accounts. If they are at zero, I can sit here if it is the corporation that caused my gang stalking. I can sit here and still have peace in my soul. I can still sit here and be whole because the money that so many people are chasing, the bag, as they say, I've been around those type of people. I've been around people who have the bag. They have the bag, the car, and they got the damn house, the pool, the jets, the jewelry. I've been around those people. But when you look in their eyes and know the diabolical things that they can do and will do, they don't have any joy. They don't have any peace. And you may sit there and say, well, I could deal with that with having the money. Look around at most of your celebrities. A lot of people who are high-powered people, a lot of them have some sort of substance abuse. A lot of them may be alcoholics. A lot of them may do hardcore drugs. But they have it all. They have everything that you think you would want until you see the other side. They don't have it all. So I'd rather sit here and be at peace and still maintain the joy in my heart. And if I have to go day to day through a program that I've been placed in, if it's through the hands of my former employer, I'd rather do this be here, be me, and be free for real than have to drink myself to sleep, take drugs to cope, and hurt people just to feel. No. They can have that life. Or if you call it a life. I used to go down to the main office, and there was one of the big program director, the main program director, over I think 12, 13 stations. Every time I went in the office, it was almost as if it was a hidden joke. Just living the dream, huh, Nicole? Just living the dream. I want to say to him and them and everyone else who thinks that they have a hidden hand, just living the dream, huh? Just living the dream. I think it's going to be a reversal. A reversal. This is the dream world. And you're going to be waking up into the real world and realize you would have rather done right in this facade of a dream than have to live and be judged in the real world that you're going to wake up to. You know. So, chosen ones and targeted individuals. I also feel that this may be an ultimate test for you as well, how you will handle yourself going through these trials and tribulations. How will you handle yourself? I'm out and much